Hey, I'm Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. In my over 30 years of medical practice, I've made it my goal to help you create a strong mind, a healthy body, and an unshakable spirit. What I want to go over today is anxiety. I'd like to react to this video that was on the Today Show a few months ago, which I thought was really good, actually, gave some really good advice. And I'd like to give kind of my take on it as we listen to it together. So let's listen. I'm going to stop periodically to give my comments, but I think you'll find it enjoyable and informative.
That's probably going to hit home for a lot of people. If you feel down or have persistent worries, you could be dealing with something called high-functioning anxiety. Our friend, board-certified psychiatrist Dr. Sue Varma is here to tell us what it is and the signs and symptoms to look out for. Dr. Varma, good morning.
Thank you.
I was just chatting with you because I thought I was kind of in the clear from anxiety until I read about high-functioning anxiety, and I realized, oh, I'm tired. I'm a perfectionist. I kind of check off all the boxes.
Yes.
What is it?
Yes. So the interesting thing is high-functioning anxiety is not a medical disorder, but it has all the symptoms of anxiety, of rumination and worry and concentration difficulties and restlessness, but without the impairment in functioning. So it's people showing up 100% in 100% of what they do, and that can be exhausting. You can have difficulties starting tasks, difficulty making decisions, feeling irritable, feeling on edge, feeling like you have so much on your plate that you're exhausted. But it's usually with high-functioning people, women, moms, and sometimes like all three.
How is that different from also just being a mom and having to get through all the things you have to get through over the course of a day?
Yes. So what's interesting is that in high-functioning anxiety, you show up, but it's at a cost to you. Nobody is seeing the impairment. It's what we call like a duck syndrome, where you see the duck and you're like, oh, they're happy.
Right.
But underneath, it's exhausting.
I think that's a great example using the duck because we always see when we look around us, especially on social media, we always talk about the highlight reel. When someone posts things on Facebook, it's the best of the best. So we always see what appears to be everybody leading the best life. We don't really see the swimming underneath the waters. I think that's a great example. And another thing I'd like to point out, and I'm going to talk about this going forward here, and I think the psychiatrist is really good because she's able to communicate very clearly. Anxiety is something that every single person has. And the reason why is because anyone who knows any of the writing I've done, whether it's my book Brain Drain or Fake News Stories by Your Brain, we know that we are a dichotomy. We have a higher mind, a higher consciousness, but we have a primitive nature within us, and that nature is running 24/7. Its only purpose is to protect us from danger, threat, or vulnerability. It's the same as the animal kingdom has. It's the same as that duck has. And when we're not aware of it, it's what runs the show. And so what anxiety is, it is the fight of the fight or flight response. This primitive nature only reacts in two ways. It's binary, fight or flight. Some people will say freeze, but that's really when the fight and the flight are going simultaneously. So the anxiety is a sign of fight. And when you have that sign of fight, it means that there's some danger that's lurking. So some of these the idea of being a perfectionist or being a perfect mom or whatever, those could be signals of danger or vulnerability, and your brain signals that, gets that, and causes you to feel anxious. So just wanted to point that out. I think this is very educational. Let me know what you think, and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you see more of these and give me your comments of what more you'd like to see.
It comes at a price to our health and wellness.
Yeah.
So doctor, what's at the root of this?
So I would say people-pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination. We don't know what people are expecting, so we project that they want something done yesterday, and we work really, really hard. We procrastinate because we want to be perfectionists. We want everything to be right. But we forget that they say perfect is the enemy of the good. Sometimes good is good enough.
Yeah, I have a saying that we could always do our best, but we can't always be the best. And when we set up that high bar of being the best or being perfect, that signals anything less than that is dangerous to us, is vulnerable, may make us vulnerable to attack, vulnerable to criticism, vulnerable to embarrassment, and so that will stimulate that anxiety response. So. Right on here. I'm really enjoying what she has to say.
and just move on.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Dr. Varma, in terms of physical effects for folks who suffer with this.
Just one other point I'd like to make about procrastination. Procrastination usually is the flight response, okay? But it can, by delaying things, that can cause anxiety because you need to do something, and if you don't do it, it can cause you to be in a threatened or vulnerable situation. So usually when we see things that are too daunting, one of the ways our brain will respond is by fleeing, is by holding back, is by procrastinating. But when we do that too much, that can cause us to be behind, and then that could cause us to feel anxious inside, and that's a good time when the fight and the flight go simultaneously and paralyzes us.
This high-functioning anxiety, what other things might they be suffering with?
So first thing I would say is get a medical checkup. A lot of times thyroid disorders, vitamin B12 deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, a lot of these things can show up as anxiety or heart problems. So we want to be able to rule that out. Then I would say, if you do have high-functioning anxiety, headaches, irritability, insomnia, sleep disturbances, high blood pressure, heart racing, palpitations, anything with stomach.
Yeah, look at this chart here. This is really important because this kind of highlights what the physiologic response of the fight or flight response. See, your fight and flight response makes your body ready to attack or ready to flee. So what does that mean? Well, if you have to fight or flee, you're not going to be sleeping, so that's going to affect your sleep by sleeping difficulties. It's the sinus infections I'm not so sure about, although it could interfere with the immune system, the fight or flight response. The high levels of adrenaline and cortisol, that's what drives the fight or flight response. That's what gives us our elevated heart rate or blood pressure. Chronic inflammation, because the body has to clot. Think about this, if you're fleeing 30,000 years ago, or from a predator, or even somebody chasing you now, and you fall and you injure yourself, the blood has to clot, so you heal up more quickly so you can get away, and that's what chronic inflammation does. So these are symptoms of the fight or flight response. Irritable bowel syndrome, acid reflux, gastritis. This is all effect that the body does of helping shed weight to help you fight or flee. Believe it or not, when we get butterflies in our stomach, that's a sign of the fight or flight, because that there's danger, or we're feeling vulnerable, and our body is looking to get rid of waste. And this is one way that it does, by gastrointestinal symptoms.
Irritable bowel syndrome, going to the bathroom too much, or too little, it manifests from head to toe.
Okay.
I think we could all relate to some of these. We're all like, I have that, I have that.
Yes.
But there are ways to fix this setting boundaries and stop comparing. Tell us some of the ways.
Yes. So first thing you have to recognize is that I have high functioning anxiety. I have something that helps me be really productive, but at the same time, it's coming at an expense to my sanity, to my relationships, to my well-being. So set boundaries and get clear expectations. When is the deadline? Is it a deadline that you made up in your head? Ask for more information. When do you need this by? Why am I rushing myself? Boundaries. A friend is asking you to go to a bachelorette party that you can't afford. Get to the root of it. What is it that you want? You want support? So how can I show you that in other ways? How can I learn to say no and say yes to
No
myself?
is a complete sentence.
Yes.
It's okay to say no.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's important also to realize where it's coming from. You're feeling vulnerable. You're feeling threatened. Something's making you feel uncomfortable. The situation's unfamiliar. These are little things that are triggering the anxiety. So these are very good. It's good advice. But something like, say, get a decent sleep. Well, that's more easily said than done. Because when the anxiety is flying, when all the floodgates are open, it's hard to just say, okay, get a decent sleep. There are techniques which I've gone over, and I will in the future, to help with that. But move your body is a really good one, because that is a way to sublimate, to put that anxiety onto something else, which is exercise, and that's a really good suggestion. And she has some others, like
Stop comparing yourself, get decent sleep, move your body. I call them the 4 M's: mindfulness, movement, meaningful engagement, mastery. Do something for yourself. And therapy. Therapy is huge to recognize that
Good
you
advice.
have these
All good,
tendencies.
good,
Yes.
good
And
advice.
Is it ever any good?
You know, it's a double-edged sword. I was telling Jill, like the perfectionism, the need to want to do something the right way drives us and makes us so successful. But keep in mind, what is the cost? Am I not sleeping? Am I not relating to people, taking time for myself?
Thank you, Doc.
Well, really good, and I have a real shift in the way I look at this, because there have been books that have been written about the benefit of fear, the benefit of anxiety, and my feeling is that none of it is good, because if you look at the fact that we have our higher mind, our higher consciousness, our divine nature, if you will, our connection with God, that we have, but we also have this primitive animalistic nature, which is really the driving source of our anxiety. Our higher mind will be able to guide us in very productive ways, and I think much more highly productive than really believing and taking direction and listening to this lower mind or this animalistic or this primitive nature of ours. So it's a discussion to be had, but it certainly is a driving force in many of our lives. And I feel overall this was a really good presentation on anxiety, and let me know what you think.
Super helpful.
Yeah, really
Thank you so
helpful.
much.
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. Super helpful. So let me know what you think, and definitely subscribe to my channel. Soon I will be launching the CoachMD Show podcast, and I will be having that on Spotify and YouTube. And I'm really looking forward to just talking to you and talking to people about medical conditions, but it's also going to be leading into those things in our life that are inexplicable, that coincidences that we may have, that I've called in the past daily magic, things that happen in our lives that we just can't explain, but do have such a major impact on our lives and our health. And I'd like to integrate that with real medical issues and challenges that people are having. So I'm enjoying to bring that to you. Until next time, I'm Dr. Charles, aka Coach MD, urging you to stay strong in mind, in body, and right here in soul. Bye for now.